What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode in the Unleashed Potential podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Haji, as always. Alongside the boys, we've got a full crew in the house today.
Absolutely.
Ami, Jabbar, Bulid, and Amr Hassan. How you guys doing, man?
Alhamdulillah, man.
It's been 2 weeks since we've last caught up.
Bro, the weather's beautiful today, man.
For
Today,
winter.
Yeah, for winter.
Yeah.
Especially after like the weather the last few days.
Oh,
It's been
man.
raining the last
What is
few
it,
days.
what, 25 today?
Yeah.
25, bro.
25.
25.
Yeah. 25. And that's our winter. Like, I've got my cousin from Europe over here with us. And like, the last week we've been averaging 1 or 2 days rain and then sunny weather, and we're just sitting outside in the backyard having a meal.
Yeah.
And it's like, if this is winter, I can get used to it. I was like, yes, but when summer comes,
We'll see then.
we'll see then, you know. Because our summer is ridiculous. But apart from that, man, how you guys been? It's been 2 weeks. I think I've seen a couple of you guys, but I haven't seen you since 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, Hassan's been 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the rest of us all.
We've all caught up.
You guys caught up.
We've all caught up.
But then it's been a week since we caught up as well.
Not me and Elm. No, not the three of us. It's
Okay,
been
well,
a week
yeah,
between.
a week, yeah.
I don't know, man. I've just been busy with work and the financial year and
Yeah.
all of these things, you
Busy
know,
period.
and family commitments and stuff.
Trying
So
to make us most on that tax return, huh?
yeah,
that money.
yeah, man.
Have you guys done your tax return, by the way?
I've sent it. I'm just
A
waiting
bunch
for
of
it to come back.
fraudsters.
Still waiting, bro.
What do you mean fraudsters?
Yeah, you're supposed to do your tax returns. I'm sure you guys haven't done it in the last couple of years.
It's only ended last week.
Yeah, I've got mine all up to
I'm
date,
kidding.
mate.
It's on my accountant's table. It's up to him now. It's all
up
out
to
of my
him,
hands. Huh?
I actually like tax return time because, like the last couple of days, I've been averaging enough to always fund the trip. As soon as
Do you get enough back?
I get enough back to pay for the trip and accommodation, and I just take a bit of pocket money.
Yeah, that's true.
Like trips like all the way big enough to go to Europe. I remember 2017, it paid for my Europe trip.
I get just enough to cover the fee to actually do the tax return. You know what I mean?
That's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Bro, I don't know, but then it just means that I've been taxed correctly
Yeah.
throughout that year. Whereas you guys have been taxed unjustly.
We worked.
So.
No, we
you
worked
can
extra
also
hours.
claim back that fee that you paid last year. Yeah, you always see. You know that.
Yeah.
So it literally is technically it's free because you're always claiming it the next year.
No,
No,
you
it isn't.
you claim a portion of it. You don't claim it all.
Yeah, not all. Yeah, oh yeah, true. Yeah, but
Tax that you paid on it. That's what you claim.
yeah.
But yeah, that's it's a busy period for tax accountants. I think this is when they make quite a bit
This is
of
when they
their
are
money.
smiling and happy.
Not just that, for most businesses as well, because
Yeah.
now they advertise their end
And
of financial year
sales,
sales and whatnot.
yeah.
You know, so you already start to think of, and just like you said, you know, when I get my tax return,
Yeah.
then I'm ready to fund my trip.
Exactly,
You know? So
exactly.
you're already thinking about what you're going to
What
spend
you're
your
gonna
tax
spend
return
it
on.
exactly,
Yeah.
and sales and everything. But man, let's dive into today's topic.
go.
I think we've consistently done some pretty good topics, but today is a topic that I think we all might be able to relate to a bit more intimately. It's a bit close to home. It's the relationship bond between a parent and a kid, between us and our parents, as well as us and our younger siblings, and how we influence their upbringing, and how the relationship with our parents molded our upbringing versus the relationship of parents and kids today, and how it's molding their upbringing, and the difference. I'm assuming you guys are all pretty close to your parents.
Yeah.
I know that your parents don't live here in Australia.
Yeah.
Yours do, yours don't, and ours do. Or one of my parents and the other parent is in Europe. But growing up, man, I think it's safe to say that we were all pretty tight with our parents to some extent. And that friendship, or not necessarily friendship, but that bond, sort of really made us who we are today. If our parents didn't really have that close connection with us,
Yeah, we were first generation here.
yeah,
So like when you come home, luckily we went to an Islamic school, so we
Exactly.
have like Somalis and similar people. But when you, especially on the weekends or days off or school holidays, when you come home, it's different to the rest of the
The week,
community.
yeah.
When you go out and you're out shopping or working, or your kids, so you're not working, but you're out and about. It's where you're living in Australia, but when you come home, you got that culture, you got your parents. So it was kind of like a whole different thing where
Two dynamics in
it's
one.
two dynamics. So like sometimes you needed to be at home. It felt different. You know what I mean? Like you had to come home to your safe, to your sanctuary. And I think our parents were like that too. When they come home, it's like their children, their spouse. So the house dynamic was I think a little bit unique for us, you know, because it's kind of a little bit more intimate when we came here, because my parents were like one of the first people here in WA, so it was a very small community, so we had to come together a little bit tighter, you know. And the kids this generation, they don't. It's fluid. The door's in and out. You know what I mean? They're inside of the house. They'll speak English in the house. They'll speak English out the house. They'll, you know, it's the same to them.
Sometimes I hear my mom yelling at my siblings, "Do you think this place is a hotel? Like you just come, sleep, and leave." You know what I mean? Whereas for us, it was different. Chores. There was set of things you did. Even the relationship with your parents and how they brought you up, the discipline, and how they restricted certain things and managed certain things, and the way it is today. I think it's like the way our upbringing affected us is affecting kids differently nowadays.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think that first generation is a huge thing, because our parents came here and it's the first time they're raising a child in an environment that they don't know. You know, so for them, the first few children is generally the first time they're doing it. So our younger siblings, they kind of learn from us. They know, okay, if I treat them this way, this is how they're going to go. This is where they're going to get the information from. So you find them being a little bit more open and lenient to the younger ones to be able to like connect with them. With us, it was kind of like, you know what's up. Don't do that or you're going to get smacked in the back of the head. And you knew it. You're like, okay, cool. I'll stop.
Yeah.
But the kids now, they're not like that. You got to be calmer to them. And like a lot of parents are realizing that. And it's a little unfair, you know, when you look at your younger brother and siblings
thing is,
go
like,
out.
being first generation children here within, you know, this Western society, we sort of adopted to this way of life at the same time as our parents.
Yeah.
So when our parents were back home and we were with them, right?
Yeah.
They would discipline us. So just taking discipline for an example, they would discipline us a certain way.
Yeah.
But then as soon as we moved over to, and I'm only speaking from experience, you know, so as soon as we moved over to New Zealand, our parents sort of had to adjust to the society's way or the country's way of the proper discipline, which is not allowed to hit your child, especially after there was a bill that was passed, an anti-smacking law or whatever. So that discipline slowly changed, right?
Yeah.
And then the way we were disciplined changed as well, and the nature of our relationship moved from being afraid of your parents to now you can actually approach your parents and actually talk to them. And so that paved the way a little bit for the younger siblings as well.
Yeah, I think because when we understood where our parents were coming from with the discipline as we got older, especially with me in the teenage years, when I was able to actually be able to sit down and talk to my mum and dad openly about this sort of stuff, I think, like you said, it really helped them to understand where we came from, which made it easier for the younger siblings for them to deal with the younger siblings.
But see, I think it's again, just on that discipline topic. I think it's not just sort of okay. When we came here, the discipline sort of changed, right? But now it seems that it's completely disappeared in some instances. Like,
yeah, the kids have more freedom. If you discipline them too tight, they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, the kids have more freedom, and parents, as we like to joke about it, like us being the oldest or like some like closer to the older kids, like we were sort of test projects. You know, that's what we joke about. Like we were the test subjects, and they start to figure out, okay, communication is key. You know, a bit of free time. And understanding, like you said, it changed from one of just do's and don'ts and you being afraid of your parent versus I need help with this. You know what I mean? And where it is now. But for you guys, man, like you guys, I would assume are close to your parents. And how's your relationship when you were growing up and now? Like, has it intensified? Has it lessened? Where do you stand on that?
I think for me personally speaking, it intensified. It increased more because being the oldest in the family, I won't say test project, but
it's alright. That's what we say behind closed doors anyway.
You know, but I mean, like, you know, my dad was hard on me, you know, and for a reason, not out of love, to, you know, try to
better you.
Yeah, better you, because my parents grew up in Africa. They came here, and I wasn't born here, but I still came here at a young age, and they had that sort of mentality, like African mentality, where, you know, make sure your child is, be hard on him, him or her, so that they don't
Tough love and care.
tough love and care. They show that love for you, but at the same time they want to be straight with you. So.
And then how is it intensified as you grown up?
No, because right now, like I'm very close to my parents. Like even though my dad's away, I still get in contact with him every day. If I don't try to get in contact with him a day, I feel different, because the least we could do is show our love and care. Because my dad always says, like back home, he might be, when he was here back home, he might be like, sending money and overseas to our parents. Right now, our parents, all they're asking for is love and just a phone call, or just, that's all they need, because they're not, imagine if they were asking us like to feed them and to send bills to them, like how they're doing to their parents every month, all they're asking for right now is just a phone call.
So even them as parents, so you guys said that we were test projects. They were actually testing their abilities as well, if you think about it, because like he said, like even my father does this as well. Like he'll send money back home to help, his brothers and sisters siblings. Whereas me living here, it's very rare that I would send money unless my parents ask for it. You understand? So it's not something that I do, on a consistent basis. Whereas that's how he grew up, right? And so he doesn't expect that of me. That expectation has been lost at his generation, right? For the future ones to come. And the same of like me, like that, because it hasn't been instilled in me that, hey, the reason why you're going to work is so that you can help provide for us as a family. It's more now, okay, the reason why, to look after yourself.
And your family.
It's so weird, but that even them as parents and what they expect of you is different.
I think we're kind of lucky because we do have friends who are our age, who live here with us, who went to school with us, but have parents overseas who were raised up by their uncles and aunties. So now that they're working, they still sending.
They pick up that.
They pick up that tradition because while they were young in school, their uncle, whoever raised them up was helping their parents. So now, like in that case, we're pretty sort of lucky, I guess.
It's weird though, but relationships with your parents, or the parent having a relationship with the child, it's a case by case thing. Not everybody's going to have the same relationship. We might have similarities between us. I'm sure you guys all know that going to school or dropping out of school was no question. Right. That you cannot discuss that. Even the fact that you're failing in school, let alone dropping out,
that's not an option.
That's not an option, right? So there's certain expectations that your parents had of you, and certain things that you knew your parents wanted of you. So you, as a child, you knew you can't come home late because that's something that they expected of you. But then moving forward, once they get more settled into the society, then you start to see those expectations sort of soften a bit. I know for me, like
they broaden but soften at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly.
They start talking to you about building your future.
Yes.
And sort of communicating that to you, sit you down, and like for me, growing up, my dad. Those of you who know my dad, very strict. There's no two ways about it. He says something, you don't talk back. Like very strict. Very strict with education, religion. Even things like after school on weekends, no English in the house, right? And growing up, I didn't really see the benefits in any of these things. Why I had to read Quran for certain hours a day, speak Somali. I live in Australia. What am I going to use Somali for, right? All those things. Like these guys have known me all my life. I think I can count on 3 fingers maybe how many times they've come to my house. Like that's the kind of dad I had, right? Very strict. Very strict. Like and he used to be the Duxie teacher, so obviously everybody knows about
nobody wants to go to the teacher's house. Come on, man.
But then growing up, you hit that age where you're 12, 13, 14, and then you start hitting late teens where your friends are more important than family. You go through that little phase where it's like, all right, I'm trying to move out of home, live the life with my friends, travel for a bit. And then you hit the 20, 21, 22. Alhamdulillah, I'm 25 now, married. And if I'm going to be honest and I look back at the way my dad raised me, And for you to ask me, like, would you raise, inshallah, your kids like this? I'll tell you 100%. Obviously, with some as
you'd raise your child the same way your
not
dad
the
raised
same
you.
way.
No, but like about similar, right? Like
similar. But the thing is, by the time, inshallah, I've got kids and they're at that age, like the time and place in society would have changed. So aside of all those expectations, like some of the things that he instilled in me that I didn't see, for example, like the importance of learning or knowing your mother tongue, the importance of your religion, all these things that I used to hate and be like, when am I going to leave? So I can, I now appreciate it. But the thing is, he's given me so much tough love and care that now I can't express those love feelings to him. And I just tell him, I make that for him. I tell him, thank you very much. And the most I got to was telling him, I appreciate it. You know what I mean? But because he was so much tough love and care, I don't have that emotional side to be like.
My question is though, you said that you're gonna do it the same way your father did, even though you didn't understand, like certain things you didn't understand, but your father still instilled it.
But some of the minor changes, like I would tell them why.
That's what I'm gonna say. It's not that you're not gonna do it. Obviously, you're gonna do it different. You're gonna do the same because you still want the same principles
and things.
But that's not what Hassan's saying. He's saying you're gonna go about it the same way. Obviously, you're not gonna.
We're not go about it exactly the same way. But like, I'll make sure that some of the they understand first of all
how you did understand.
Like some of the things that I'm trying to teach them. Like obviously communicate to them, bring it across a bit better, but still be firm about what it is that I want to teach them. You know what I mean? And not just because we live in a place where you don't hit your child and you're on discipline. There's gonna be different forms of discipline, right? Like grounding and whatever works. And I want to be honest with you. If none of that works, I'm gonna smack him. I'm telling you straight up. Like
I think Haji.
I'll go through all the other stuff, but at the end of the day, a good backhand does the job.
I think Haji's.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna say that smacking your child is the right thing or the wrong thing to do.
It does the job.
Some people abuse it. So I'm not gonna condone it,
100%,
right?
100%.
But if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the child's age,
exactly,
it can either work or not work. And sometimes
it depends on why though.
And that's the thing.
It depends on why.
Depends on why you hit the kid. I see a lot of people, parents frustrating hitting the kid because they can't connect with the kid.
Yeah.
They say something, the kid doesn't understand what they're saying. The kid does something else, then they hit the kid. It's
and it's the fault of the parent, not the child.
Right. So. If the child does something wrong and you explain it to him why he's done it wrong, then he does it again, and then you explain it to him and you tell him the consequences, and then he does it a third time and you looked at him and I said, what's your excuse now?
Yeah. Now, see,
you can pat him, you can give him a little bit
all jokes aside, right, I know what it feels like to get your ass whooped.
I'm sure you do.
And the thing is, in that moment, like, I remember times where like you get in trouble and then afterwards, your dad's like, I'm doing this because I love you. And then in my head, I'm just like, how does that make sense? You're hurting me right now. I'm not happy. You're telling me this is because you love me. Like, no, like, all jokes aside, I think, first of all, understanding your child or even your siblings, right? Because like, now, like, if you haven't moved out of home and you're your younger siblings, you're also responsible for them. If you see them doing something wrong, you've got to talk to them, stop them from doing what it is. But I think it's, again, like a case-by-case thing, right? If you got a kid that's stubborn, that doesn't want to listen to anything, right? That's a different case. If you got a kid that, and if you're, again, it depends on you as well. If you prefer just this rather than explaining to the kid why he's done it, and every time he doesn't know why, like, you're smacking him, and without explaining to him, he goes, does something else, and you smack him again. Like, there's so many different criteria. And I think, especially like with our parents back home, I think like, I don't know if it's something they thought about or not, but I think it didn't, for experience, it didn't pass the abuse point. And there were times that they started talking to you about it. And there were times that they would smack you. And I think it was a healthy balance. And again, look, your household is your household. Your kid is your kid. Discipline them the way you see fit. But again, as Muslims, the most important part is you have a right over your child and your child has a right over you. That's, if you keep that in your mind, that one day you'll be asked about your rights upon your child and your child's rights upon you. This child has a right to feel safe in your house, to be fed, to be looked after, to be taught, right? If your son grows up and you haven't taught him how to be a man, how to be a woman, how to be a Muslim, how to be a human being, and they go out doing all these things, later on, you'll be asked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So try to make yourself like, by the time your child hits the age of puberty, that you can say, Ya Allah, I've done my best. I've taught them to the best of my knowledge. I've trained them to the best of my knowledge. I've given them as much, because things that people don't think about, like I've heard a man saying to his child, like, I don't have to love you to raise you, which is wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
part of raising him is you emotionally connecting with him.
Connecting with him. You know what I mean?
Regardless of whether it's wrong or right, like just the kid hearing that, you know, imagine as a child hearing your parents say, like, I don't need to be doing this to love you. Like, you know, like,
the thing, emotional damage.
At the end of the day, like with your parents, you have to be respectful. And at the end of the day, that's what it was with us. Like, you'll get whooped by your parents and you're sitting there like, this is the worst thing ever. But you're not walking out that door. You're not packing your bags. You're not walking out that door. Because at the end of the day, deep down, you know your parents are doing it for the right reasons. Because they respect you. You know what I mean? And the second you, like you said, there's that responsibility. And when you see a lot of the parents where their children don't, they're stubborn and stuff like that, it's when they neglect that responsibility of their child.
The thing is, like, if you think about it, it's a relationship that you have, and any relationship requires two people or more, right? But to have a relationship, you need two people, and it needs time, it needs effort, and in some cases, sacrifice from either person. So if you're trying to have a relationship with your child, or you as a child are trying to have a relationship with your parent, then you need to be able to spend time with them. There's so many kids that I know that don't connect with their parents, or feel like their parents don't understand them, or they don't understand their parents. Why? Because they'll come home from school or whatever, or come home from work.
Food's on the table.
They eat out with their friends, or they go to their room, and they don't actually sit down and just have a chat to their parents. They never ask them, how are you? Like, how many kids, you know, sit down and ask, hey mom, how are you? Or hey dad, how are you? And just actually, or vice versa,
right.
And actually just sit down.
It's very seldom for me.
It's very seldom, right? To just sit down and connect, right? And actually spend time with the person. Once you spend time, then you'll know this person's like intentions, tendencies, and they'll be able to connect with you.
But with us,
if you put in the right effort as well, right? If you as a parent put in effort, so you can't expect to work from 9 to 5, then eat, then go to the masjid, and then go out to coffee or meet with the boys or whatever, and then come home at 9 o'clock and only put them to bed and think that's you as a parent. You haven't spent time
it's
trying
not
to.
Even that.
If you look at those families where the kids are actually doing all right Islamically, academically, whichever area you look at it, the parents are involved in their schoolwork. They're involved in their hobbies, taking them to sports, taking them out. Go watch a movie with them and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, you'll see that the parents are really involved.
Of course,
I've seen some
They
that
sacrifice a lot of their time for that child.
That's the thing. Like, you sacrifice time, but not even that. In some cases, it requires you to sacrifice your own. I wouldn't say desires, but like your ego, or sacrifice your own not so much free time. Like, there's some children that want something, right? But their parents are stopping them, not because they don't want to support them, but because they don't see that is the right way. Like, for example, you didn't want to learn Somali, but your father knew that is beneficial for you, but you didn't see it then. So it required you to sacrifice your desire, right, of wanting to learn something else or wanting to do something else, for you to actually, adhere to your parents' way. And it worked out better for you. In most cases, it does, because your parents, they're doing it out of love. They're not doing it because they literally want the worst for you.
But if it's a case where they don't understand.
Where they don't understand, but that's where it goes back to time and effort and spending time with them and trying to get to know them and how they communicate. And for the parent, sometimes it requires them to just sacrifice their ego or their power, because a lot of the times the parents, and I've seen this in most cases, is that the parent basically wants the child to do what they say, right? Because they are the parent. But that's not a good enough reason.
Nah. That's not a reason
That's
at all.
not so you need to be able to sacrifice that and understand what the child wants and work with that so that it works out better for both of you. And then like there's so many cases where the father will make sure, or the mother will make sure that the child does something that goes against what the child wants simply because they don't want to feel ashamed or embarrassed in front of people. There's so many issues,
especially when it comes to career pathways,
marriages. There's so many things that affect that. And
firstly, if you're gonna get married and have a child, and you're looking for you need to know this beforehand. You know, because we're saying sacrifice. You can't have a 10-year-old and going, man, I think I should start sacrificing for my child. You know what I mean? That's the first of all. Like, because you got to know that that's what it is to have a children. Do not look at your life and say, my life isn't going as I want it to, so I'm going to live my life through my children. Don't put your children through the same sports and don't do that. That's the child's own life. And then second thing is, like Haji was saying, you have that time. But I think more importantly than time is because some people are busy. Like, that's just how it is, you know. They might have to travel.
Busy is not an excuse.
No. Some people are busy, but at the end of the day is what the time you have with them. Even if you have a little time, you see them that they don't communicate. They'll talk, but it's always one-sided. The parents talking, the child's listening. You know what I mean? The child saying what the parents want to say, the parents agreeing because they have to. A lot of times you see a kid might be watching TV, see a boob, tell his dad, and rather than the dad just
throws the TV out,
just smacks the kid, throws the TV out, like, yo, like, I just came to you to ask, because you're my dad. It's the first time I saw it, you're my dad, I'm asking. So the second you do that, then the next time the kid does anything, that communication is cut. He's not going to come to you. And then you can't raise your kid doing that way, and then you end up saying, my kid is stubborn, what do I do? No, your kid is stubborn, what have you done? What have you done to get him to that point?
I think with us, it makes it a lot easier, because right now, growing up in this Western world makes it easier for our interact with our child, because we've been through it. So if my boy comes up to me right now and says, you know, I've seen this, I know how to react to him because I grew up where our parents didn't, were not raised up here. They were raised up, like in a Muslim society where everything was closed and nothing was seen in public.
A better community, closer.
Yeah, so I think that helps with us. But as a parent, I think whether you spend most of your life in Africa or here, I think there's no excuse for you not to have time with your child. I remember my dad, even Haji. I remember our dads used to take us to Sunday tafsir every Sunday. The other boys were playing football at Curtin. Yeah. Right across the road, we were sitting down with like men, 30, 40, 50-year-old. We were the only two guys. Me and Haji looking at each other like this, like we were trying to hold, I used to come up with excuse sometimes and be like, Dad, I got an assignment to do. Wait for him to go, get my boots, go. But the thing is, the good thing I think with my dad is like he always had a relationship with us, because even I remember after school, he never used to let us catch the bus. He'd always like, I'll pick you up. Like he never wanted us to be public transport or whatever, just to be like, I'll pick you guys up, wait for me.
Get some food
and
on the way.
Even if he was running late, he'd be like, okay, just get the train, but stop at the nearest that train station, I'll be there. Like he wouldn't allow us to get a train all the way home, So even school holidays, we used to go down camping. We used to go down like every school holidays we went to a trip. Whether it be down south, whether it be down up north, Lancelin, like every school holiday he will sacrifice a couple of days. He'll build that bond with us, even though he was strict. But for me,
when you look back, those moments
that he did shows to me that he cared about me. He
of course.
He had love for us.
Now, for me, there's a lot of instances that I look back now, and I'm like, I'm glad Dad made that decision for me. You know what I mean? Looking at the way I turned out, because had he not occupied my time with what I didn't think was useful at the time, that turned out to be useful for me now, I would have been using that time to do stupid things.
Do you know the thing is, like, they say that a child's mind or brain doesn't fully develop to the point where it can make informed, sound decisions up until the age of roughly 25 years old. But I find myself, and I see other people as well doing this, is that they treat their child, or they speak to their child as if the child's an adult. And they think that this child should understand,
yeah.
should know the consequences of this.
They do it the opposite.
So-
They do that to young children, but then the teenagers, they just kind of, they don't explain it to them.
But
as an
I
adult.
find myself doing that as well with
Yeah?
with my daughter, and I always have to pause and just catch myself. I'm like,
She's a child.
yo, think about it from like a 2-year-old. If you were a 2-year-old,
What is this guy talking about?
exactly, not even like I don't understand what this guy's talking about, but like, why would I do this? Like, why would I pick up tissues like 200 of them and just rip them all over the place? You know, like to me, I'm like, you're a 2-year-old. You know, like but when you say it to your mind, you're a 2-year-old. You should know this. It's not really fair. You know what I mean? So like sometimes we treat them older than they actually are,
sometimes
and
we
we
treat
treat them assuming their brain is, you know, capable of making sound decisions, but really they're not.
I do that with my 8-year-old siblings, and I get so frustrated when I don't get a adequate response. Like, why did you do this? They're just standing there looking at you, and I'm just like, I just give up. I walk away.
Yeah, it's
But
just.
I think it's a key part to build that bond at a young age, so that later on, when your child is 18 or like as a teenager,
They can go straight
where
to you.
the age where they're very vulnerable and very active, that you've already built that trust with them, so they're ready to talk about anything to you because they know they trust you.
I had
A
that.
lot of children right now, like our age, are scared to talk to their parents about certain things that they have deep down. Not because they don't want to, but mainly because they're scared on how their parents are going to react.
But then the thing is, do you expect the child to come and initiate that conversation? You should know your child enough to know what's wrong, and then initiate that conversation and make them feel safe enough to speak to you.
That's true.
That's at least what
ultimately
I
it's on
think.
the parents.
And get them used to that, you know, that line of questioning. Get them,
Because at the end
like,
of the
sit
day,
them
it's
down, talk
ultimately
to
on the
them.
But
parents.
sometimes it could be even like, you know, the child would be out and the child might come home and then the parents would be like, where you been? And the child would be like, I was at my mate's place playing FIFA or whatever. Where he could be somewhere else, you know? But he's lying not because he wants to lie.
He's lying because
Just
if he
so
tells
that
the
he can
truth,
escape from
he's
that.
afraid of
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Exactly, it's the consequence.
The consequences.
But what I'm saying, if that parent probably, you know, spent time and that built that trust with them while they're young, and you know, even you know, as a child living in this Western world, you're the one who brought your child here. There's going to be consequences.
But I don't think in no instance will a child be completely forthcoming with a parent, no matter how comfortable they are.
Of course not. Of course not. But that's where,
not
like,
but small things like
I've
being
had
out, small things like, you know, like
I've had a
Been
disagreement.
that way? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Well, look,
I went out. Went out where?
firstly, like, I have a different.
Okay, right now,
we're talking about
no, I know what you mean.
East
Okay, right
African
now,
Somalis,
Haji, right now.
ethnics, right?
Yeah, ethnics.
right now, I'm just got a daughter,
Yeah.
all right? And just say when she grows up, she's out with her friends. You know, if she tells you that I was out with my friends, like, you're not going to react the way our parents react. 'Cause you know how to react, because you know what he. So she's going to be truthful to him. But every child was going to be forthcoming with their parents. It's all depends on how that parent raised them up.
Or reacts to it.
Reacts to it, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
You know what I mean?
that's true.
Because
And
with my dad, I was always
what's
honest.
helping Umar to react to his daughter is because he
Went out.
no, he's been around this environment.
He knows
you know?
what's up.
He knows what's up. So
No,
that's
but
what
like,
makes it easy for us.
With my dad, I found out really early on that whenever I went out, I was always honest with him. Because when you're younger, when you're 10, 11, you're not doing any of the crazy stuff. When you're 11, 12, you want to go to the movies, you want to go bowling, stay out. You know what I mean? Like, during our time when we were younger, I'm not sure about other people. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go out bowling with my friends. I wanted to do this. So I wasn't doing anything wrong. So anytime I snuck out and did that and I came back, I always just told my dad straight away. Right? Because I remember, because he would never get angry when it's stuff like that. And it got to the point where when I was 16, 17, I had Somali friends that would sneak out the house, that would, just to go to the beach that weekend because their parents were like, they knew they will sneak out. So they would be a lot tougher. Well, I'll just be like to my mom, I'm going to the beach, and walk straight out that door and catch a bus. Because my mom knew that anytime she ever called me when I was out, my dad knew anytime he called me or pulled up wherever I was where I was and I was doing what I was doing. But then that got to when I got to 17, 18, got my license and stuff, it was kind of like, okay, we don't need to call him as much. Like, he'll call us, or you know what I mean? So now I'm going fishing at 2 a.m., or early in the morning, or I'm sleeping over at a friend's house, and it's, I know he's sleeping over at a friend's house rather than. So luckily I was able to find that out a lot earlier. It was more so with my dad. My mum is a bit different. She's a little bit more, with the boys, they mother them a bit more. So
I think the other issue is just the parents themselves don't make it like an open home for your child's friends to come over, so you get to know them as well.
Yes.
Me growing up, a lot of my mates would just happily come over. Like they'll just come over, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, whether they're Ethiopian or not. They'll come over and they'll actually, greet my parents. My parents will get to know them. Sometimes they'll just have a nice chat to them, and then they become a lot more trustworthy because
they know
who you hang around with. Because the environment is the most important thing, right?
I think that's key.
You can say to your parents that I'm going out, but then the next line of question is who you going out with. And if you say it's the so and so, and they don't trust that person, automatically it doesn't matter where you go.
And you are who your friends are.
So yeah,
exactly.
With
So
my parents,
that's what they want to try and make
friends.
sure that you. So if you don't know your kids' friends, then you've already failed 50% of it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter where they go.
My mum and dad knew pretty much most of my friends, and they were close with it. Then you get to the point where you have like new friends and stuff, and you might have 2 or 3 new friends, and then you bring them over to the house, and your mum's cool with all of them except for one, and you don't know why. Why that guy? And then like 2 years later, you're like, okay, that's what it was. That's why that one there.
The other thing I think is like the inequality. I know now if I raise up my children, if I have more than 2 or 3 or whatever, I would, regardless of whether they're boys or girls, I wouldn't raise them up unequally. Like I'm going to make sure that they're equally treated, right? When it comes to their rights,
because all of them are
to their own
needs.
Yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is, like, I know us, for example, like my sister, or I know the females within a lot of the Ethiopians and Somalis and stuff like that, they get treated a lot less compared to some of the guys. The guys have a lot more freedom compared to the females, right? Yeah. And I get that in terms of like safety and everything. Yeah. But what about upbringing? What about training them up to become, like
See,
proper men, like just allowing them to go and come as they please, but then the females at home, you know what I mean? Like
my house, because we're 4 boys. I got 3 brothers, and we're the oldest. You know what I mean? So there was and there's a few years between us. So with my younger sisters, they're all younger than me. So my mum kind of got them later. So it was kind of like they baby them. We're already older. So you know what I mean? So it was kind of different. But I've always had friends where their sisters will be at the house. They get treated completely different. And it's not just the going out and the freedom with the parents. It's also like just in the community. Like you can go out as a guy by yourself at 10 p.m. and they'll be like, oh, he was just walking down the street. If a girl goes out, like that reputation gets changed different. Yeah, you know what I mean? And for a guy, example, like you could be going out and doing whatever it is, but then one year where Khamis be a nice guy for a year, and then next thing you know, he used to be like that. Look at him, mashallah, he's good. But it's so much harder for females. I think in general, it's a whole different topic. Like for us to get into the mindset of ethnic people and even just Westerners, how they view females and how they get treated differently, we can talk for 4 or 5 hours on that, like completely separately. Like,
no, I get that.
I know what you mean.
I get the consequences that might come.
I get what you mean.
But
for
just
us,
going out and coming back, that's one aspect of it, right? There's so many other things. Like, for example, you could be at the house, right? And the house could be messy. The female is the one that's expected to clean up.
That's what I mean. Like, we can talk for hours just on that. But for us as
parents,
as would-be parents or for parents out there, like, they got to be really sure. Like, it's not just that. Even if the child was going to do that, like, she's my daughter, I'm going to do it, it's okay. You just got to understand that child is getting completely mixed messages in this day and age. She's going on a laptop. The second she leaves that house, the world's telling her the opposite of what she's doing in the house. So like, and also with your sons or whatever you teach your child, you got to be really careful, because it's not, a lot of parents think that whatever they say is what the kids are going to listen to, and that's it. Like, it's their law. Like, there's not a world out there and the kids don't think for their own and stuff like that. So you got to be very careful with your daughters, because everywhere you treat them, there's going to be an effect. So with daughters, I reckon guys always baby them.
What I'm trying to say is the lessons that you instill in them might be the same. But what I'm talking about, like, in terms of the discipline that you give them, and then on top of that, like, you might, for example, your expectations of them should be slightly similar as well.
Yeah.
So if you expect your son to be independent eventually once they graduate from uni, to own a business, to at least start something, you should expect that of your
the
female as
sister,
well.
yeah.
Don't just say
Absolutely.
no, she's gonna get married, therefore it's
Yeah.
just that, you know what I mean? Like you should expect similar things of them.
I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%.
It's
and,
more,
and
more of a culture thing.
yeah, more of a cultural thing.
Yeah, but at the end
same-
of the day, just
same-
look at it
yeah.
this way. No, as long as my daughter or my son is doing the right thing, like, and there's nothing haram or anything bad about it, regardless of whether it's something I want for them, like it's a career path or a choice I want for them, it's my duty, as long as it's not haram, to make sure they fulfill it as best they can.
Yeah.
So the second you think about that, no matter what you go, I don't want to doing that, I kind of don't want to, you just got to go, that's not my life. That's not my job to tell her what to do. My job is to guide her on the right path, and whatever path she chooses, the best at its ability.
That's right.
You
There's
know?
there's a lot of sisters out there who, mashallah, they're doing good. You know, even though, you know, they do, you can say probably they're doing better than probably their own sibling brothers.
Mhm.
And but there's an old guy in Africa. I mean, he's got like 5 daughters, and no, so 3 daughters and 2 sons. He goes, they're all in America and Europe, whatever, and he's in Africa. So every month, you know, as parents in Africa, they expect a monthly bill from their children.
Yeah.
And he goes, I only get it from my daughters. You know what?
Another sons.
I get a phone call from my daughters. I get a visit from my daughters. I get, you know, it's even though like the parents are, you know, trying to treat. It's wrong. I 100% agree. It's wrong for the parent to say, okay, the daughter's expected to do the house chores and stuff. It should be equal, because in the end of the day, if you train your child or your son to not do it, later on he's going to expect that from his wife. He's going to say that to his wife too. He's going to be like, nah, it's your job. You know what I mean?
And just saying this is how I was raised
Yeah.
is not proper. Like it's not a proper excuse for you to use onto and pass it on.
You gotta
Somebody
pass it
has to
on.
break the chain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody has to.
He might look at it and be like, okay, well, my dad's doing it, mum's doing the chores, dad's out there grinding. You know, it's working for them. Times changed now. Things has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's Islamically, the Prophet ﷺ said, you've got to help your parents and your spouse. You got to help them. It's not a strictly female job or strictly male's thing. So I agree with you 100%. It should be equally, as a parent, you should equally raise your child up.
I think just in general, like the nature of the relationship between the parent and the child changes with
It
every
does.
generation, because there's other complexities that are added into it.
Completely does.
For our parents, it was the migrating to a whole new society, learning a whole new
not
language,
even that.
adopting to a
But-
whole
but-
new
I think-
culture and way of
I
life.
think the
And
one common denominator is just maintaining a healthy relationship with your child, where you can communicate.
Communication and respect, yeah.
be present. I think that
Yeah.
when you're present, then you're more likely to try and maintain that relationship.
No, it's really. I think that sums it up nicely. Be present, communicate with your child. But the one thing, the best part for me, I personally remember, is just that one point, like where you realize how everything affected you positively, and you just appreciate everything, and regardless of how gloomy your upbringing might seem now, it will change, and you'll get to a point where you're like, I understand why they did it. Try to perfect that. Try to add on to that. Take the good and leave the bad as you go on. But I think apart from that, man, that's all up from me. If you guys want to add anything, now's the time.
If you haven't called your parents, give them a call now. No, seriously.
On that one there,
That's right.
You remember how I was telling you, like, because my dad was so much tough love and care, I became the same. I was watching this video on YouTube about the virtues of parents and how, like, you can, like, either of you guys can lose each other anytime. Like, tomorrow's not guaranteed for anything. And it really got to me, right? I said, you know what? I'm going to call up my dad, say nothing, just tell him I love you. Yeah? I said, all right. I get the phone call. It rings. Half my heart is praying that he doesn't pick up. On the last ring, he picks up. And my dad, very formal. Hello, Assalamualaikum. How you doing? Everything good? Yeah. And then, like, we got through the little small talk, and now's the time.
Why are you calling?
I buckled hard. I asked him about some money I was going to give him. And then I was like, yeah, all right, no, have a good day. I said, no, can't do it.
Can't do it.
I can't do it. So as a challenge from me, try to call your parents.
And don't do
Because
that.
our parents, they said "I love you" in a whole different
with action
way.
language.
With actions.
Yeah.
It wasn't through verbal communication.
See, for me,
That's what it
for,
is.
For me, I'd much rather empty my wallet and give it to my dad, or like go to the house and do things, or like take him out. But never really say anything
you were
about it.
raised that way,
Like I'll take him for a feed. We'll go have coffee.
But it doesn't mean you don't mean it, and it doesn't mean
I
that you
mean
don't feel
exactly.
it.
No,
I just can't say those words.
Yeah,
That's
because you haven't been raised up
that way.
been-
Exactly.
yeah, no, but
I
the
mean,
thing is-
wallah, for me, like that phone call, like just made me realize, yo, like I don't really need to say it anymore.
See,
Like
I
I'll
think
show.
that's the sort of things that we should not take from the Western culture. Because the Western culture, they're like, there's 1 day out of the whole
Oh
year
yeah, the whole
Yeah,
that we
Father's Day.
should what do you call it? Remember our parents. Happy, like Father's Day, Happy Mother's Day. Where culturally and Islamically, we've been
It's every
brought
day.
up
It
should
that
be every
mothers and
single day.
fathers,
Yeah.
Your parents, you should be remembering them every single day. You know, even though you might not be saying to them, "I love you" every day.
Do the action.
But I mean, you mean it because
Yeah.
you wouldn't be calling them, you wouldn't be, hanging out with them, you wouldn't be visiting them.
That's right.
If you didn't really mean it.
Like from what you told me, like me and him were having a chat about this a couple of weeks ago, actually early this year, and we were talking about like how you realize the good that your family does for you, and mashallah, like this guy is like every day before I go to work, I go past my mom's house to see if she needs anything. Like that's what is required, and that's what inshallah all of us like try to get to, like to that point where like in the back of your head it's like what do my parents need. I mean, your parents have pretty much sacrificed all their youth and everything, raising you into the person you are. So like now is the time to
Adding
pay
to
back.
that, I remember when I moved to Queen's Park, my first house I moved to was Queen's Park, and my parents lived in Maddington. That's maximum 10-minute drive. So my mom was like, "Oh, you live too far." For me, I'm thinking 10 minutes.
10
I was like,
minutes, yeah.
All right. Then I moved to Maddington, which was like
2 minutes drive.
2-3 minute drive. And she goes, yeah. Right now, I literally live behind her. No, but we don't realize
the benefits.
But
Yeah.
we realize it's the thing is, like, I mean, for us, it's easy to travel around. Like, as we can drive to the north and back, and we don't really mind.
Yeah.
But our parents, that little time that little travel time, it's big for them because they're doing a lot out there. So right now, just come from work. I've got time to be with my family. I can just walk down. My boy walks down, rides his bike to my mom's house. It's that close, It's amazing to have that
that connection.
that connection,
No, mashallah, man.
But
Don't and just speaking on that, don't do that thing which I don't know where it came from, but it's like a death sentence to me. But you're hanging with friends and then you see their mum call and their dad call, and they just kind of slide it and they put it away. And I'm looking at them like, you want to die? Like, how did you just step outside? You know what I mean? Like, because you're gonna get a second one, and if you don't pick up by the second one,
because the moment you pick up, they know you're not.
Bro, you know what happens if I ever miss a phone call from my parents? They just send me voice notes. They send me voice notes. Hey, just to let you know, and then they tell me the message, and I'm like, whatever happened to voicemail? I got voicemail.
Yeah.
Why do you send me a separate voicemail?
To make sure that you get it.
No, my parents it's one ring if it's something small, like they want to ask me something or they're looking, whatever it is, something tedious. If they call me twice in rapid succession, it might be like we really kind of need you, but it's not emergency. If I get more than 2 calls in 10 minutes. And sometimes it's the smallest thing, and my mom's just not in the right mood, and she just wants to get a hold of you, and she's like, I don't care, you're not at work, you're not sleeping, so I don't care what you're doing, pick up this phone, and you pick it up, and if that excuse in the first 10 seconds isn't perfect, then she'll know. Like,
for me, it's the time difference, man. Like 4 or 5 hours.
But even like right now, my dad's even 5 hours, 4 hours. But he goes, that's no excuse. He goes, when it's midnight for you, I'm 5 hours behind you. If you can't get hold of me by my phone, like
no, it's
WhatsApp.
okay if they're behind. Mine's in front. So
yours
if it's 6 p.m. for me, it's almost midnight for them, and I'm like, do I want to wake them up, knowing they've probably got work the next night?
When they like going to sleep, you're probably at work or something. For me,
So,
it's the opposite. So
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse. But like if you can't get hold of me, my WhatsApp, I'm online. He goes, I'm online everywhere. WhatsApp, Facebook.
There's all kinds of methods.
There's all kinds of methods.
Pick up, as long as you pick up that phone.
But
Just pick up that.
maintain that relationship.
It's one thing I wanted to add on to you guys. I haven't been saying much. I've been listening to you guys a lot,
Yeah.
Mashallah, you guys covered everything.
Almost
One
everything.
thing. Yeah, I missed that one thing. Right. obviously, you know, Muhammad Sallallahu
Sallallahu
Alaihi
Wasallam.
Wasallam, the Jannah is under your mother's feet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Your mother,
your mother.
then your father.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a reason why.
First, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
Jannah, like,
Yeah.
piety towards your parents.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, shout out to the parents out there. Alhamdulillah, you know.
What
for us
about
boys
what
out
about
there,
what about the
Yeah.
parents here? Nah,
To all the
okay.
parents.
alhamdulillah,
Don't forget your parents. Yeah.
Bro, wallahi, like I've seen, like in this country, Australia, we live in, bro. I've got a lot of Ma'adan mates,
Yeah.
like non-Muslim mates. The old parents, like their parents, so their grandparents.
Yeah.
You know what they're?
Yeah.
What's those homes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
HK.
HKs and stuff.
HK religion.
No.
Yeah, see, that's the difference for us.
I'm not gonna dog on that because there could be a certain situation
Nah,
where
Yeah,
it
I know
actually
what
works
you
out a
mean.
lot
No, but
better for
how
them
often
to
do
be
you
in
see
there.
like movies or comedies or people
The
talking
issue
about?
is whether you visit or not. That's,
No, but
that's
have
what
you
I
ever
think.
heard the one where they
But
just
yeah.
throw him in there because it's
No,
inconvenient?
you can't. No, but
No, yeah.
everybody's situation is different.
No,
Yeah, but you gotta know the
He's
situation.
right.
I've been through this type of situation. Let me tell you, bro. In Australia, you were very blessed. You can keep them in your house.
Yeah.
A nurse will come every day
Yeah.
and visit them every day, 2-3 times a day, whatever they need. You always remember, never ever leave you. You will never ever should leave your parents. I'm not. You're not gonna do that. Leave your parents, to some person to take care. It depends on your view. That's my view.
No, I'm talking about whether somebody is like mentally not there.
Oh yeah.
If somebody is physically incapable of doing something,
Special
No,
needs.
and
special cases
you
like that,
have to
yeah.
be out of the house.
There's always
You can't leave them home alone by
There's
yourself.
always, you're talking about special cases. You're talking about
But
general
that's what I'm
cases.
saying. There are some
Yeah.
instances where it's actually
If you're doing it just
Because you know why, bro? Because your parents.
it's tough. Yeah, for you might feel that way, but there are some instances. What
If
I'm
you-
saying is that it actually works out a lot better for both the person and for you.
if
as
you're
well.
doing it just because it's you don't want that slight inconvenience of taking
No,
care,
if it's an
then you know what I mean.
inconvenience,
That's something different.
Obviously, if it's kind of like there's no other choice, like I need to, obviously, but
Or health reasons, as was mentioned. But I think that wraps up our conversation for today.
does.
It's been a very healthy conversation. We've learned quite a bit from our own experiences. Hopefully the viewers take some benefit from it, inshallah. Try to tell your parents you love them. If you can't tell them, show them. Much rather you show them.
take that whooping, don't fight back.
Yeah, don't raise your hand because that's automatic fight stance. But apart from
Stop
that,
resisting, yeah?
stop resisting. You're gonna go down hard. But apart from that, catch you guys next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys get us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and check out the Instagram TVs on Instagram as well. Catch you guys.